It's one of the most popular games in the world. It broke Steam records, both in terms of sales and concurrent players. It revolutionized Battle Royale gameplay, pitting player against player in a desperate, engaging struggle for survival. Oh, but enough about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Let's talk about the Culling instead. Ha! In March of 2016, developer Xaviant launched the Culling into early access. This was different than the other big Battle Royale game at the time, King of the Kill. This was a much tighter game, focused not on shooting but on melee combat. It got a lot of hype, and early on had up to 12,000 people playing it. 18 months later, the game had fallen. And I don't mean in the sense that less people were playing, but it still had some popularity. I mean, the game was dead. Not even enough players to get a full game going. Devs announced they were done with updating it and had moved on to the next project. So if the game is dead, why even talk about it? Because the world needs to remember the Culling. The world needs to study the Culling as an example of how to kill a video game before it's even reached its full potential. And maybe there's just a little bit of schadenfreude to be had. Let's start at the beginning, when the Culling launched. I have a pretty wide selection of clips I want to use, so you'll probably be seeing some differences in quality. Mostly from my own footage. I had a crummy laptop back then. When the game launched in early access, it was quickly a hit for its simple but fun premise. 16 players are dropped onto an island, last one standing wins. You can use generic resources to craft primitive weapons, or you can search one of the many lootable buildings to find better weapons. The combat was simple. You had attack, shove, and block. If the enemy is attacking, you block and it stuns them. If the enemy is blocking, you shove them and it stuns them. And if the enemy is shoving, you can attack them for a free hit. It was almost like a combat version of rock, paper, scissors, and with a stamina bar to monitor, it created a system that was both tense and wild. It led to combat that was, well, maybe not the most elegant, but a ton of fun. The game also had a system where you would gather something called funk for doing things. Finding a new building, trading in items, getting kills, other objectives like that. You would spend this funk to either heal yourself, craft items, or save it up to call in your airdrop, a mechanic where you picked from about 20 different packs of weapons and items of varying use and expense. And there was a perk system with special abilities to increase your offense, your defense, skills with certain weapons, even movement speed. All in all, it wasn't the most polished or balanced game, but my god was it fun. People were having a blast playing it. I got in on the game pretty early, making videos myself. Oh god, apparently that was before I cared about my appearance. And it's certainly not like I was the only person getting involved. Like I said, early on there were thousands of players, including a whole lot of people on Twitch and YouTube. Big names getting in on the fun.
Oh fuck, that's a dynamite. Love me!
Woo!
Oh my god! Big man a minute ago! You're a big man a minute ago, Sata! Big man a minute ago!
Over the next few months, Xaviant made some tweaks to the combat, the stats, the stamina mechanic, until all the players were pretty much satisfied with it. And with thousands of players still enjoying their time on the island, it looked like the Culling was going to be the next big thing on Steam. Until it wasn't. There is a lot to say about the Culling, and trust me, we're going to get into it. But if we want to talk about the downfall, if we want to answer the question, who culled the Culling, we don't have to look very far. The answer's right in front of us. It was Xaviant. The developers culled the Culling. It's generally agreed upon that the June 2016 patch was when the game was at its best. The combat had been fine-tuned, there was a wide variety of perks and airdrops available, everything was poised for the Culling to continue to be a popular game. But instead, something else happened. Patches kept coming, and not the kind of patches to fix glitches or add new content, but rather patches to continue to tweak combat that was already at a spot everyone agreed was good. Patch. All axes now do different damage and have new wound effects, and explosives do less damage. Patch. Axe wounds have been changed again. Patch. You can no longer get shoved when transitioning between states, a game mechanic that nobody had a problem with. Patch. Everyone now moves slightly faster for some reason. Patch. Bow damage has been shuffled again. None of these patches on their own are deal breakers, but they were still rather puzzling. After all, everyone thought the combat was in a good place, why keep changing it? But while we were trying to figure all that out, patch. 25 perks had been removed from the game. Previously, the perk system was great, with a wide variety of them to choose from, and 3 slots for your perks. It let you customize your own playstyle. Sure, some perks were stronger than others, but having all those options made the game fun. Suddenly, we went from 43 perks down to 18, and even some of those 18 were nerfed. Xaviant claimed the game was becoming leaner. Fans viewed it as becoming not as fun, and the player base began to drop. Coincidentally, right around this time, another big multiplayer game hit Steam, Dead by Daylight, which was also an instant hit. So players were starting to tune out of the culling. So what did Xaviant do? Patch. You could no longer get tier 4 weapons from red crates because it had the potential to change a match. And you don't want that, apparently. And for the record, I'm just highlighting some of these patch notes. Every single patch had change after change after change, dramatically changing the combat with every single one. With all these patches, things became clear. Xaviant had a vision for this game, and they weren't going to let it be deterred by little things such as what people wanted or what people enjoyed. And if you think I'm being hard on the game right now, brace yourself, it's about to get a whole lot worse. All of those various fun airdrops, they were replaced by a new system where airdrops came in a generic form, containing armor, a random boost, and a single weapon of your choice that you could summon early, mid, or late game. Another change that took the fun and color out of the game to try to continue to tweak gameplay that had been fine. A new mode called Lightning Round was introduced, where only 8 players were each given the same airdrop right off the bat. It was a fun idea designed to create quick, high-energy games. The mode was removed 3 weeks later. As a personal note, I will never forget the moment I knew the culling was doomed. It was the March 15th patch in which they announced that holding onto a charge attack had been removed from the game, and now charge attacks would just happen automatically. Again, a change for the sake of change that nobody asked for. But that wasn't what killed it for me. It was the patch notes, which I am now going to quote directly. While this technique can create some interesting moments, it doesn't fit our overall vision of combat. And that kinda sums it up, doesn't it? A game with a ton of potential, ruined for a vision that nobody wanted. Again though, all of these could be overcome, and the game still had some life to it. Until December 19th came, and one of the most bizarre, unhelpful changes to any game was implemented. Patch. Hitting an enemy who was blocked would no longer result in you being stunned, meaning you could just hammer away at a blocking enemy until they ran out of stamina. Remember that rock, paper, scissors analogy I made earlier? Well, now imagine a version where paper could never win, no matter how many times you covered rock with it. Perhaps you're wondering, well, wait a minute, if paper is worthless and rock always beats scissors, why would you choose anything but rock? Well, that's a question that everyone had, except for Xaviant. What? Combat had been boiled down to a mindless click-a-thon, and now nobody was happy. The game was dying faster than ever before, and something drastic was needed to turn things around. But it's okay, Xaviant had a plan. In January of 2017, they introduced the Big House update, a brand new map in an abandoned prison. There were all sorts of changes to the game. There were new weapons, there were new cosmetics, the game was going to be brought to Xbox One. They called it the official jump from alpha to beta. The game was now $10 more expensive. They updated the performance to... Wait, can we go back to that last one? What in the fuck? For all the culling's faults, it was always a fairly cheap game at $15, on par at the time with stuff like Bastion or The Binding of Isaac. With this new update, the one they were hoping would bring in tons of new players, they raised the price to $25. Your game is not doing well. It has pretty negative reviews. And yes, this is a big patch, but when you're trying to win fans back, that's not the time to announce you want more money. It was yet another utterly baffling decision. And while there was a short-term boost in people coming back to check the game out, they just as quickly left, and very few new players were actually interested. Not to mention, those new cosmetics they added, yeah, those were now in a brand new fun and intuitive system, in which leveling up would give you a box full of loot that you could, There are a lot of things I haven't talked about. The matchmaking, which began putting people into game types they hated, the incredibly casual text of the patches that were trying to be cool but ended up just reading awkwardly, Xaviant openly admitting that they wanted to focus on the Xbox One version, but I almost don't need to bring those up. At this point, the game was done. October of 2017, they announced they were leaving early access, and less than 2 months later, Xaviant confirmed that they were done with development in any way on the game and were on to their next project. And with the game now regularly having a single-digit player base, most of the time not even having enough to fill a single game, yeah, that was pretty much inevitable. And that's it, really. There was no spectacular one-week collapse or some huge controversy that destroyed the game and overshadowed everything. It just sorta slowly died. I know I've been hard on the game. I know I've pointed the finger directly at Xaviant because, frankly, it is their fault. But man, I really miss this game. The Culling was unlike any other Battle Royale game at the time. Yes, nowadays we have PUBG and Fortnite, and even back then we had H1Z1, but the Culling took a melee approach, with more customization between characters, as well as smaller games to create a much more intimate experience. All they needed to do is know when to stop, know when to ease up on the changes and focus on adding content, or focus on what people wanted. Instead, Xaviant barreled ahead with poor changes and doubled down anytime there was a backlash. Some people blame Xaviant for trying to dumb the game down so that even brand new players could win games without having to practice. A bad strategy because it meant there was little point to actually getting good at the game. Others think they were trying to homogenize the game so that there was less randomness, thus making the game more esport friendly. But it was that randomness and variety that made the Culling so much fun to begin with. And others just think Xaviant was kind of incompetent. And while I can explain what happened and how it happened, it's the why that will forever hang above this game. Look, I don't know what Xaviant has planned next, and I certainly doubt they'll be watching this video. But if somehow they are, or if heck, any game devs are watching, if the Culling can't be a big hit, at least let it be a teachable moment in gaming. Listen to your fans. Have a vision, but be flexible. Don't try to fix what isn't broken, or indeed, don't fix what is actively doing well. And hey, I know I've been rough on Culling and Xaviant this whole time, but if Xaviant were to bring the game back to that wonderful June 2016 patch, or if maybe some other company wanted to pick up the reins and bring back the Culling, I'd certainly be down for one more trip to the island. It's kind of a downer ending. How about me killing people with a sledgehammer? Thank you all so very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe to see regular gaming content from shows such as Game Boy Roulette, 10 Things You Missed, and every Monday, Dollar Store Gaming. And follow me on Twitch for streams almost every day. Special thanks to Labrizzi, KD Wolf, Witwix, and MS Standard for use of their footage in this video. You can find links to their channels in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm BrianJ, and I will see you next time.